Hey, it's Laura from Creative Jam, and welcome to our little Friday morning content group. And we are going to do this every 2 weeks, where we talk to somebody in the industry about, everything FMCG. And the first thing that we're going to talk about today is barcodes. And we've got Gary here from GS1, and he's going to talk about why barcodes are so important and why they are more than just what you would normally see a consumer who just scans it and pops it in your trolley and you go home and you never think about it. And so what we want to talk to today is just a little bit of demystifying around barcodes and how they work. So thank you very much, Gary, for spending some time with us today to talk on that.
No, it's a pleasure, Laura. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So why don't we start right from the top? If I've got a product and I'm ready to put a barcode on and I've got no idea who to do it, so someone says to me, okay, you've got to talk to GS1. So who is GS1?
So that's actually a typical conversation that most suppliers have with their retailers, Laura. They get their product all sorted, figure out what it is they're going to sell to the retailer, get the packaging done. The retailer says, oh, I love this. I think we'll arrange this. So we're good to go. Go and talk to GS1 now. And the first thing that goes across the supplier's mind is, I've never heard of those guys before.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of like 11th hour for a lot of these people. And so GS1 is a global organization where we're a federation of 115 GS1 organisations around the world, with our head of global office in Brussels. And GS1 New Zealand looks after the New Zealand part of our global organisation, and all the companies in New Zealand that, for one reason or another, within the context of this conversation, want to put a barcode on things. So we're a not-for-profit. In New Zealand, we're an incorporated society. And Laura, we've got 8,500 members in New Zealand, and a lot of them come from the food and grocery sector. Mm-hmm. So typically what happens is that companies are told to go to this organisation called GS1 and get your barcodes. I think one of the first things to recognise is that we actually don't give them any barcodes at all.
Yeah,
we give them the numbers to translate into what a barcode ultimately looks like. So I suppose if I was to characterise what we do, Laura, we're about three pillars: identify, capture, and share. And if we think about that within the context of barcodes, our main foundational reason for being, I suppose, is that we uniquely identify things in the global supply chain. And the way that we do that is with a global system of numbering that is translated into or encoded into a barcode that then suppliers will be able to put on their packaging. And so when scanned, the number that's encoded into the barcode unlocks a record at the retailer, which provides more information about what is this product, what are some of the attributes of this product, the price, and those sorts of things. And so that's what we do. Mm-hmm. And as I say, not-for-profit, have 8,500 members in New Zealand, and we're the largest global supply chain organisation in the world.
Wow, that's amazing. And good to know the fact that you spoke about the fact that you don't actually supply the code as in the picture, which everybody will recognize as being a barcode. You supply the unique number that then somebody like me who would go, okay, now it's time to generate the actual picture which sits on the product itself.
Yep. Absolutely. Although in saying that, Laura, we do provide a service. If some of our customers want to translate it or turn it into a barcode, we do that. But we're often confronted with a supplier going, oh, I thought you were going to send me a whole lot of barcodes in some way or another, and go, no, it's actually just the numbers to use, which comes as a bit of a surprise to them sometimes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And so with products, why is it important to have barcodes on these products?
So imagine a supermarket that didn't have barcodes on their products.
Mm.
I think it would collapse probably overnight. So a supermarket would have 20 to 30,000 SKUs in their range. I remember in the old days, my grandmother used to own a Four Square type supermarket in Martinborough. And she used to get out a pad and a pen and write down everything that someone bought and put the price alongside it.
Wow.
And then at the end of it all, add it all up. Well, that's just inefficient and actually inaccurate as well. And so a barcode, a simple technology, automates a whole process, drives a whole lot of efficiencies in a business. But I think importantly, it identifies that product as unique in the world.
Yes.
To that only, and in and of itself, that's really important. So in our registries, when an organisation becomes a member of GS1, we give them a unique number that is the start of the barcode number, and that number identifies them uniquely in the global supply chain, and their products as well.
Wonderful. Oh, that's excellent. So if I had say I've got a bottle of juice and I've got my first product, I'm selling it in New Zealand, and all of a sudden somebody in America says to me, oh, we want to stock your juice. Can I use the same barcode then to go and sell into America?
Good question. So the benefit of being global like we are, as I mentioned before, is that our barcodes are able to be used anywhere in the world. So this notion of, you may have heard it, interoperability becomes really important. And so when you become a member of GS1 anywhere in the world, those barcodes theoretically will work anywhere else in the world as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Okay. So I'm just checking my questions to make sure that I get everything. What are some tips that you could give to a supplier who's just starting out, has been retail ready, is accepted into Countdown with 3 products, 3 different SKUs, and a SKU is meaning like to say what a SKU is. In fact, what does SKU stand for?
Yeah, stock keeping unit. They call it stock keeping unit, or a lot of manufacturers or suppliers will be familiar with that term, stock keeping unit. We actually call it a Geton. So at the next dinner party that you're going to be at, Laura, this is going to blow people away when you go, have you heard about Getons before? I have. It stands for Global Trade Item Number. It's a fancy name for a barcode number. Basically.
Yeah.
And so essentially what my recommendation to people would be, talk to GS1, work with us in uniquely identifying each one of those products that you would want to supply into a supermarket. They have to be unique. But the interesting thing also, Laura, to be aware of is that it's not only the thing that you would see on the shelf, it's the cases they come in, and the cartons they come in, and maybe the pallets that they come in as well. And so, people ring us up and say, oh, I need a barcode for my product. So when we start digging into that question, we go, well, how many products do you have? And they go, probably 3. And I say, actually, you've probably got 6 at least, because the cartons and the cases we refer to, we say to them, you probably require a barcode number, a Geton, for that as well. And so really it's understanding what it is that you're actually going to be transacting with the retailer. So very often it's the thing you see in the shelf, the consumer unit, but the packaging hierarchy, as we call it as well. So that's the first thing. The other thing that I would talk to a supplier about, which is becoming increasingly important now, is, do you have an image of your product? It's something that a lot of our suppliers, probably do think about, but they think about it in terms of, well, I've got an iPhone here, I'll take my own image of it and just send it into one of the retailers and that should be good. Very often it's not. There are actually standards around what the image needs to be like. So certain quality and a certain naming convention before we can put it into a database, clipping path around the outside of it. So the retailers can use it not only in their online environment, but for mailers as well. And so barcoding is one thing, but really it's data that's king now. And so, the barcode, yes, but we need an image. If you're going to sell to the retailer, invariably they're going to put your products online. And I don't know about you, Laura, but if I go online and have a look at a product, there's no picture up there or photograph of it, I don't even think about buying it. And so photography and images become really important. Another service that we provide our suppliers, which is also equally important, well, it's one thing having a unique identifier about what it is. It's one thing having the image, but what about all the information about your product as well? So if you can imagine a food product, consumers are interested in allergen information, nutritional information, ingredients, and increasingly things like what's it packaged in, sustainability of the packaging. And also, the retailers are becoming increasingly more interested in having that data as well presented on their website, so that when you or I go in, we can actually have a look at everything about that particular product, so we can make an informed business decision about what it is we're actually buying. And so our recommendation to a supplier would be, barcoding's good, but you need to think about data. Data is king now. Comprehensive, is it accurate? Is it up to date? And your image. It's those three pieces really that are essential now for actually online sales success.
Oh, that's fantastic news. That's really good, and totally some of the advice and well that I would be offering to people as well from my end. And
Good.
that it is all so much about the more that you can sort of give to your client, that is or to consumers, the better off you will be, and then making an informed choice to choose your product. Now, one of the things that one of the pieces of information that I do get asked about by clients is when you actually go into GS1 and you go through the process of adding a product, is the category that you fit into. So there's a drop down that you can go, and it asks you what kind of category that you'll be in. If you came to that and you hadn't given any thought, or you didn't know which category you supplied in, how could somebody find out what category they could go into?
So that's a good question. One of the services, Laura, that we offer suppliers, especially who are supplying into food and grocery, which is your interest, is we offer a service called the National Product Catalogue. This is a tool that sits in between a piece of kit, I suppose, that sits in between a supplier and the retailer, where the supplier is required to fill some fields in a database, if I could put it that way, that is then synchronized with the retailer's systems, and the data flows automatically between the supplier and the retailer. So they're not sending emails or letters or texts or something about their product to the retailer. It's in an online environment, and it's constantly working between the supplier and the retailer. One of the requirements of the National Product Catalogue is actually, how is this categorized? It's one of the data fields. Well, GS1 around the world actually operates a classification system that classifies every conceivable product that you could possibly buy. And so we can help your suppliers with that. And what we would do is just ask them a broad understanding about what their product is. And then we would go through some options about what the classification could be, to a point where we would go, actually, based on what we've talked about, it fits into this one, and the classification number for that particular product would seem to be this. And so we provide that service, and actually we do actually have a link on our website that you can go into and put your product description in there that would give you a good indication about how that would be classified using a global classification system.
Awesome. And that's so good, because I know that GS1 actually have a lot of really good services available on the website. And so I think for a new product, people going into the industry, it can seem quite overwhelming. But I understand that you guys have a course that runs, I think it's twice a week, and I think it's an hour, and people can actually come and learn and what it is that GS1 can do, and how they set up their products for retail success.
Absolutely. Yeah, we call it a quick start, and we do that purposely because we know that sometimes this is not easy, and it's a whole different language. We talked about Jeton before. Well, no one's ever heard of that until we tell them, and then it becomes quickly part of their vernacular. So we have quick start webinars free for anyone that wants to come along and participate. I think it's like 45 minutes. And we just go through the basics, sort of like the conversation that we're having now about things like barcode allocation. When do you need to change your barcode and why? What barcodes would you use on a case because they're different than the barcodes that you use on the consumer level? Why do they need to change? Colours of a barcode, size, shape, all those sorts of things, they become important. And one of the things I suppose, Laura, for your clients and your customers to think about now, in particular, is 2D barcodes are coming down the pipe now. And so whereas traditionally we've had those linear barcodes that everyone is familiar with, increasingly there's going to be a migration to QR codes, for argument's sake, where we might see that linear barcodes will become a thing of the past. And so part of the conversation when we're doing the webinar is to talk about what we call two-dimensional barcodes, again, QR code type barcodes, and why and what is it that these things are going to enable. So it's a quick start. It gets them out of the blocks. It's not too intense. It gives them some good solid tools to use on their journey towards getting out of the blocks and start selling their products into the retailers. And so that it's not as mysterious as it otherwise might be.
That's great. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like, people that are starting out in the product business to know?
Yeah, I suppose it can be quite daunting when you're first starting out. My recommendation would be there's a whole lot of standards that sit under all of this stuff. We may think it's just lines and spaces. Ostensibly, it probably is. It's useful to know that there is an organisation that runs the barcoding system behind the world, and there's a whole suite of standards that sit under there. It's in your customer's best interest to maybe just reach out to us and ask for some free advice to start with, because getting some of this wrong can be quite expensive, especially if the barcode doesn't go beep at the checkout.
Yeah.
And what necessarily that would mean is that, oh gosh, either new packaging or label over the existing barcode to enable it to work. So it's not only things like shape and size, it's also what's the data that's encoded in there. And so we give your customers a hand on that. And I suppose my recommendation would be pick the phone up, send us an email, nothing to lose. We're happy to help. And we're more than happy to talk with people about getting this right, because we know what the risks and the costs are if they don't.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you. And in my experience in dealing with barcodes and getting them on the packaging right, I mean, there's different standards when you're a designer and you're thinking about how the barcode is going to be placed. For example, if it's on an upright bottle, then you have the barcode vertical, because otherwise it's difficult to read, and the correct sizing, and that you can't have a barcode that's less than 80% because otherwise it's too small. And there's so many things that it's such a simple looking thing, and as a consumer you just beep it at the checkout, and then you don't even think about it again. But as a supplier, it is the back end of your brand that it gives you all the data and lets you know how well you're doing with a retailer, or maybe how or what you need to work on, whether one product is selling better than the other two products, or that kind of a thing. And so it becomes really vital. And the one thing that I mean, I don't want to scare people with, but one thing that I do know is that retailers can get a bit upset if you've got a product that doesn't scan, because the importance is of that split second that a checkout operator can scan your product. And if it's not scanning and it takes an extra 15 seconds, then that's almost like a traffic jam on a motorway, and that, it sort of builds and builds and builds. So it's important, really, it is a very important little tiny square of black and white, or approved colors that you need to have. So
it is.
yeah.
And Laura, this year is year 50 for us. So
wow.
50 years ago is when the barcode first went beep in a little wee supermarket in Troy, a little place called Troy in the USA. And goodness me, who would have thought? So today, 8 billion beeps a day on the barcodes around the world. And again, as I started mentioning to you, imagine a world without them. It would be chaos, not only in food and grocery. Yeah. So there you go.
Awesome. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Gary, in this wonderful church that you're sitting in.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I really, and for everyone out there, like I said, there is a course that you can do that's for GS1. I will put a link to that course up with this video. But thank you so much, Gary.
Right. And my pleasure.
Hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye now. Cheers.